Well, Chris, Chris, we might just get straight into it. How big a risk is it to play Lachie Neale, do you think?
No risk. We wouldn't play him if there was a risk. He trained heavily on the weekend, and he's done both training sessions this week. If you watched him train, you'd be mad not to pick him. So medical people have ticked him off. So that's what we're doing.
Chris, good morning.
You might have to be specific.
Chris,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Chris, good morning. How much, I guess, moving of the chess pieces do you need to do, missing Tom Stewart, who's obviously such a crucial player for you, and bringing Reece Stanley in?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think we earmarked going into the first final that, a strong preference was to have Reece available. So that's the good news story. And I don't think any team is comfortable going into any game without one of their best players, and Tom's clearly been that for us over a long period of time. So it's a little bit of a juggle, but one we think we're pretty well prepared for. We've had some good performances without him over the last few years, which in some ways I guess suggests that, or it speaks a little bit to our improvement as a team, as a squad really, because there was a time where if you said to me we didn't have Stewart or we didn't have Dangerfield, that we'd be in big trouble. It just doesn't feel that way now.
Patrick, I'm still with Drew. Patrick, Sean Manor may have let the cat out of the bag. You took over the music pre-game last week and rolled out some Kenny Loggins. Would you contemplate that again on grand final day?
That was a fluke that Kenny Loggins came up. No, I was trying to get a bit of Ace Ventura on, but that goes over the head of most of our players. So most of the time I'm barred from the playlist, but I'll try and commandeer it at some stage.
And just your performance in the preliminary final, one for the ages. How are you feeling this week about going back into battle tomorrow? Feeling
great. Yeah, we're ready. We've had a really enjoyable week. We're well prepared. We had a good training session on Wednesday, and this is why you play the game. So for us, it's been about embracing the week, enjoy every second of it, try not to play the game in your head before the siren sounds on Saturday, but really enjoy the week, and I feel like our guys have done that.
Harris, just how much of it the boost is it? Wait for Mike, please. Sorry. Harris, just how much of a boost is it to have your co-captain out there with you again on Saturday?
Yeah, it's obviously massive. I think he's been a huge part of our team for the last 6-7 years, and he's an unbelievable footballer and I think a real spirit lifter within our group. So to see how hard he's worked since that qualifying final to get back and play has been inspirational, and we'll certainly be leaning on him to come in and make an impact.
Brisbane Chris, sorry.
Just call us Fages and Scotty. We'll be right.
Okay, Fages. I know you said before there's no risk with Lachie Neale, but I mean, as a coach, you'd plan for all scenarios going into a game. Do you have a scenario plan where if Lachie does get injured, what do you do?
No. If you did that, you'd have a scenario plan what you'd do if every single player got injured in your team. So, no, that's not something we've talked about.
Fages, just here. Just run us through what happened with Bez yesterday and the selflessness to not play tomorrow. And I guess you had the situation last year with Oscar. I assume you'll be playing for him tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, Oscar was pretty easy. He was adamant that he couldn't play. Bez wanted to try, which is natural enough. He's a competitor. There was part of him that didn't want to let his teammates down by not playing, and there was part of him that didn't want to let his teammates down by playing, and then the shoulder pops out and he's out of the game. So in the end, he arrived at that decision himself, and as hard as it is, that's common sense. I mean, his shoulders popped out 2 times in 3 or 4 games, and it will be looser the second time around than it was the first time, and it requires surgery, so not playing.
And just quickly, one more from me, but we've heard a lot of the term chess piece has been talked about ahead of tomorrow. This really does feel like a battle of 2 of the great masterminds in terms of coaching tomorrow. They threw a lot at you a couple of weeks ago, and we heard Josh Dunkley say just before, we saw some secrets a couple of weeks ago. They threw their secrets out a few weeks ago. Do you expect them to throw a lot of the same out again tomorrow, or is it a case of you've got to really expect everything from them, and that's what you've schooled your players in ahead of the game? And to Chris, Scott, should you warn Chris Fagan that expect the unexpected tomorrow, because our secrets weren't all the secrets that we threw out a couple of weeks ago?
What do you reckon, mate?
I'm happy to go first if you like. I think mine will be a bit shorter than yours. Oh, look, we're pretty big believers, in every game, to some extent, standing in isolation. And there's a lot of planning that goes into every game, I would like to think. I wouldn't like to think that we plan harder for the bigger games. But really, it depends on what you get within the game. So clearly we're both at the stage now where we'd be pretty set on, what we'd like to happen within the game, but we have no doubt at all that things will shift within it. So that there are some things that we talked about last time we played that didn't eventuate. They may this time. But I guess over the journey we've had some pretty good games. So when I reflect on them, that there are some similarities, but there are more differences between those games, and in part that's because of the evolution of the teams. But I also think it just, some games throw up different things, conditions, who starts well. And so arguably the adjustment within the game is more important than the planning.
I think from our perspective, you learn more from your losses than you do from your wins, and we learned a fair bit and got a few reminders a few weeks ago. So we think we'll be a little bit different tomorrow with a few things that we do. But more importantly, we just need to play with more intensity than we did last time. So there's been a focus on that.
Chris Fagan, any chance Lachie could be subbed tomorrow?
I'm not going to talk about the lineups. They come out an hour before the game and we'll leave it until then.
And are you willing to take the underdog tag tomorrow?
The underdog tag.
Yeah,
I think you said last year when John was in here, we were equal dogs. Well, it was probably around about that this year. We've had some battles. We've played each other a few times. We've both had some wins and both had a loss. So probably pretty equal.
Harris, just from your perspective, can you talk a bit about Jared Berry and what it meant for the team for him to do that selfless decision?
Yeah, he's a great team man, Bez. Does everything he can to support the boys around the club, and I guess to see a little bit of his anxiousness about his shoulder, early like yesterday, and then to have that conversation with Fags and put his hand up, it's inspiring, but it's also energising at the same time because he wants to put the team ahead of himself. And we obviously went through a very similar thing last year with O. So we'll certainly be playing for him tomorrow, and he's just going to do everything he can for the next 24 hours to make sure that keeps everyone's energy up and is getting around everyone.
One for Chris Scott. The man 2 seats to your left, Chris, has been instrumental in the last 2 finals for the Lions. Do you have extra work or extra thoughts into keeping him out of the game tomorrow? And does that in turn have something lined up for Mark Blitzarves with his extra flexibility now that Reece Stanley is back in your lineup?
Oh, it's hard for us to put in much more work. He's been a pretty good player for a while. And I think maybe that's the situation both teams find themselves in. I suspect the meetings will be pretty short between now and the game, and even earlier in the week. It wasn't as if we needed to start at the beginning with the threats that Brisbane present. Both teams know each other pretty well. Yeah, I don't think Harris is going to be their secret weapon.
And Chris, this time 3 years ago, you had a decision to make on Max Holmes on this very day. 3 years on, how have you seen and reflected on that moment and seen him handle that and the excitement around him this week to be able to get his chance on the big stage?
Well, I mean, if he hasn't been our best player over those 3 years, he'd have to be very close. No, in fact, I'll make the statement. I think he has been our most important player in the last 3 years. And, I mean, to each their own when it comes to what motivates you. Personally, I tend not to look back. I don't really think about 22 at all, and especially when it comes to Max. And I suspect that once you get to this stage that if you're searching for extra motivation, you're in trouble. I would prefer that, and again, look, if he chooses to, that's his prerogative, but my suggestion would be that he just keeps doing what he has been doing because he's just been so important to us.
Chris Scott,
Craig.
you've followed a different list model to most clubs and what everyone expects to get clubs to the top. Why have you been able to stay at the top with a lot of fringe players or rookie players or blokes from overseas or mature age guys when most clubs can't?
Oh, it's a complicated answer, that one. Probably not. I can't answer it in a thorough way here. The part that I would highlight is that a lot of what we've done has been done out of necessity. It's not as if we sat back and said we think this is the optimal route for any team to evolve. It's just we've played the cards that we've been dealt. So look, I think a lot gets spoken about with the way. I think culture's an overrated and overused term when describing footy departments these days. But I think the key part is we've never fallen in love with ourselves, and we've never thought that we were better than any other club. We just have come up with a system that we think works for us, and maybe it'd be difficult to replicate because we have a slightly different set of circumstances, and you know we've got great admiration and respect for what Brisbane have done, but you know we're both here via different paths, and we respect their path and what they've done. But we do acknowledge that you know the way we've done it, we think is unique to us.
A question for both captains: when you consider the journey to the decider this season, what's the thing you're most proud of about your group of players?
You got a big fella?
I think for us, we've obviously had a few. Sorry, where was that question from? Maybe. We've obviously had a few injuries along the way. We've been able to deal with a bit of adversity as well, which I think, that's probably what I'm most proud of. I think, a little bit of adversity and just the ability of some of our younger guys to come in and play really important and key roles for us. It's kept us older guys really motivated and excited along the way, seeing their development. But I'd probably say that the most enjoyment part's been the adversity that we've faced and being able to work our way through that.
I think for us, it's the ebbs and flows of a season. It's a long year, and being able to break it down into blocks of time, execute when you get into that groundhog, period of the season where you don't feel like you're getting a lot out of games, but it's critical that you keep winning and building on your game, and executing through that period of time, and then building on our game as the season's progressed, and then over the final 6 weeks of the season, controlling what we could, which was how we played, regardless of who we played, and getting better each game. So that's a focus of ours every season. It's harder to execute at times, and then executing in the biggest games under the most amount of pressure. So there is no bigger game than tomorrow. It's a great challenge for both sides, and I'm really proud of our guys for the way that they've attacked the season.
Patrick, over here. Josh Dunkley has gone to a lot of the great contested ball winners, especially after the way you played last week. Is that something you're anticipating, that he could be the man lining up on you tomorrow?
Don't know. I don't spend a stack of time looking at vision during the week, to be totally honest. Some of our guys do. He's obviously he's a wonderful player in his own right. Just forget the negating part of his game. So we've got to be mindful of that. We've had plenty of meetings this week around how we think they set up, but most of it, to be honest, has been about what we do. And as Chris said before, so much of it is once the game starts to play out, how you react and what you do. So potentially, but we'll just have to see how the first few minutes roll out. I don't think Fages is going to give the game away right now, but that's the beauty of footy, and that's the beauty, I think, of both teams who have been really successful throughout the year, throw up different things to the opposition, and I think that'll be a game within itself in terms of the tactics, obviously.
Fages, you've got 3 first-year players in your team tomorrow. Do you have to speak to them, a word of advice for them, and have you got any concern that, boy, that's a fair bit of youth in our team on such a big occasion?
No, I think we've got 19 players though that have played in at least one grand final. So we've got plenty of experience on the big stage, and I'm sure that the teammates of those younger boys are getting around them and preparing them for what's to come tomorrow. Well, I know they have, so I've left it to them and our leadership group to do that. They're all very capable young players, and whatever happens tomorrow, they'll be better for the experience.
Patrick, front right, down here. Fages says before that Neale's no risk at all, but is there any incentive, if at all, for the group to potentially run him around or test him out a little bit with the calf?
Oh, yeah, definitely, but he's a pretty good player. He hasn't won 2 Brownlows and multiple All-Australians, best and fairest, so the guy's done it all. So we're really respectful of just how bloody good he is. And even, didn't complete the whole game last time and he finished with mid-30s. So he's an absolute star. We're mindful of how good he can be, but it's not just Lachie, it's others as well, obviously. But looking at the vision, he looked pretty good the other day. So our guys are going to have to be at their best, both inside the contest and outside of it.
Good luck to both teams. This question's for Chris Scott. Just back on the changes, 1 in, 1 out, but they're significant ones. You get your ruckman back who hasn't played either final, and obviously you never plan not to have Tom Stewart. How much do those 2 changes change what you can do? Like not having someone like Tom who's such a significant part of that back line. Are there things you can't do? Do you have to plan differently without him?
Yeah, I've never subscribed to the theory when one of your best players goes out that it's just the next man up. They're impossible to replace, like for like. So we'll think about it a little bit differently. It's not to say that we don't think we have other options. We do, but that's a challenge. And then the ruck one. Look, we just see that as a positive. Like we think we've got. We've probably built our team over the years, at least the last sort of 4 or 5 years, with a view to having some flexibility and different levers to pull. Tom's a net negative in that respect, but Reece is the positive that sort of goes some way to evening up that ledger. But again, I'll reference my previous answer. But I think we have an idea of how we'd like the game to play out, but fully aware that best laid plans often change, and we feel well prepared for that, even without Tom.
Pat, down here. Mark Blicavs told us a few minutes ago that he certainly have a second big game in a row in you, but he was in jest saying he's not sure you have a third. How much fuel is in your tank heading into tomorrow?
I've got as much as what Fages has got, and I reckon the fire's still in the belly, isn't it, Fages? Yep. So I'm as good to go as what Fages is good to go.
You're writing me off, don't you?
I'm not writing you off, but my greys they're channeling yours. I'm worried about that.
To Fages and Harris, just on Josh Dunkley, 5 grand finals, 10 years, obviously he's a true warrior, but could you talk through a little bit? He trained away from the group this week. How's he going? And his preparation's been a little disrupted, but I'm sure you're preparing for him to be fine. Yeah,
he had a lighter day on Tuesday, but that's pretty normal for him. He throws his body around in games, and often he's not quite right by Tuesday. He did most of the session yesterday. He'll play tomorrow. He's in good shape.
Just as well, just his importance to this team. He's a true barometer of how you guys go in the midfield.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he's a fantastic finals player for the way that he goes about it. And there's no mistake that, he's been at our club for 3 years and we've made 3 grand finals. He's made a huge difference to our team in terms of his performance on field and the culture off the field. He's a pretty demanding sort of a guy, and he sets a great example.
Last 2, Jack, Drew.
Patrick, out here. This time last year, grand final parade day, do you remember what your mindset was, how you were feeling, and are you looking forward to getting out there today again?
Well, I was watching Harris in the back of a ute. Envious watching it, yeah, absolutely. It's being fortunate enough to experience before. There's nothing like it. It's a wonderful feeling that you're in the biggest game of the year and you're a live chance, and it's all ahead of you. So yeah, it's about the possibilities of what if, because as incredible a day as it can be, and both everyone up here's experienced both sides of the ledger, right? It can be equally devastating. So I think that's the incredible part about sport. It's why it means so much, because the highs are high and the lows are equally as low. So, I remember watching it. You're envious, absolutely, but I don't spend too much time once a game's done. It's like, well, you can't affect the result any more than that. There's no point dwelling on it. So it was get away, refresh, and then reset to what we could potentially achieve this year. And it's all ahead of us now.
Scotty in the middle. So I know it's not all about one player, but Bailey Smith comes on board this year. He's added so much colour to the season. We've enjoyed watching him in the hoops. Like, how crucial has he been as an addition to your team to help you take one step further this season and get into a grand final?
Yeah, look, he's really helped. I think it's a good way to describe it. I haven't heard it described as adding colour before. I'm gonna use that as my own, because I think it is a good description. He's and I think we, to an extent, knew that he was going to change us in a lot of ways. We, without sort of giving away sort of too much about the way our football department works, I would describe the group of players, even if you think back to 22 for a minute, you go through those players, and if you know them, they're a big group of introverts within that team. Bailey's not one of them now, but the players have really embraced him. And I guess it's one of our core tenets that, and again, it sort of speaks to what I alluded to earlier. We don't think we've cracked the code. There's only one thing we know for sure, and that's that things will be different, and we will be different next year, maybe even next pre-season. And a big reason for that is the players that either evolve organically or come in from other clubs. And Bailey, he's obviously helped us on the field. I think that's plain to see. But he's been good for a guy who, I'm approaching 50, and I've never subscribed to this idea that 23-year-olds want to be best mates with 50-year-olds. But he has lightened things up a little bit, and hopefully we're having an impression on him, but he's certainly having an impression on us, and in particular me as well.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fages.
Thanks, mate.
Enjoy today.
Yeah, you too.
Enjoy. Good on you. Thanks.